Is it true that all that glitters is gold? Maybe not. We'll tell you why this week on Motoring 2003.
TSN's Motoring 2003 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil, oils fine-tuned for different engines, and Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.
You know, I can't tell you the number of times that viewers have told me, you know what, Diamond, you got the best job in the world driving all those new cars and trucks. Well, obviously there are other men and women on this planet with more important jobs like saving lives, but I know what you mean. And being able to drive all the new models is not something we take for granted. But you know what I like best? It's meeting people with a passion for their vehicles. Like the other day when we literally bumped into a gentleman while in Vancouver.
My car, it's like my best friend. And you know, I hear everybody bad-mouthing Volvos. I'll take you for a spin. I've got an 87 Volvo 740 Turbo. It was the first car I bought when it came out of university. And before I bought it, I researched it heavily. I was looking into BMWs and all these other things. And I saw an old Road and Track magazine from 1987. And it said, one of the great touring sedans of Europe, and it was just singing the praises of this car. And I always liked the 740 Turbo, especially the wagon, but I couldn't find a wagon. So anyway, in 1990, when I graduated from university, I needed a car, and once I got my first job, I found a used Volvo. It was 3 years old at the time, had 89,000 kilometers on it. I've took care of it. I don't baby it. I drive the crap out of it, and everybody that gets in it goes, wow, what a nice car. And they look over at the odometer. Is that 41? 410? You got to be kidding me. I've used synthetic oil since day one, since the first day I got it. Synthetic oil burns at twice the temperature of normal oil. So with the heat that turbos generate, it's an important thing. The turbo's spinning inside there at up to 100,000 RPM, and it's just floating on a cushion of oil. There's no bearings. So the biggest thing with turbos is you have to let them cool off and warm up. I never go into turbo boost in the morning until the engine is fully warmed up. And if I do go for a long drive, when I get to my destination, I never turn it off. In fact, what I do is I open up the hood and let it idle for anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes. Everybody thinks I'm crazy, but that's why I've got 412,000 kilometers on my original turbo. It seeps from everywhere. There's a little bit of seepage everywhere. The longer you use synthetic oil, the more seepage you'll get. And it's completely normal, apparently, on some engines, especially high mileage engines like this.
Still got torque?
Still got torque, doesn't burn a teaspoon of oil, leaks a little bit, as you know, but it's getting old like all of us. So, great car though. A 1, 2. This is Killarney Secondary School. We have one of the largest music programs in Canada. There's over 1,000 kids in music at this school, and we're led by Mr. Brian Knapp, a legendary band teacher in Canada. He's built one of the largest and most successful music programs in the country. We have a full-time string department, a full-time choral department, and now 2 band directors, of which I'm the second one. Our senior band that's rehearsing in here right now just got back from 10 days in Los Angeles. We went to Disneyland and spent 3 days in San Francisco. So yeah, it's a big, busy place. A lot of the body parts are aluminum. This is all unsung stuff. Volvo never advertised this, but the doors are aluminum, the hood's aluminum, the trunk's aluminum. This car weighs just a little over 3,000 pounds, which is amazing for a sedan like this. My next car will definitely be a Volvo, if this one ever dies. I don't think it will.
this sign is apparently out of order. Maybe that's the way it should be. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
You know, there are very few manufacturers around the world that can churn a car out year after year after year with minimal change and yet still enjoy very strong sales. Well, Volkswagen is a past master at this, and this car is the epitome of everything it does well. This is the GTI. While the base Golf weighs in at about 18 large, to put the icing on the cake you have to pony up at least another $10,000. In many cases, a premium of this magnitude would be considered just too much. In the case of the GTI, it is much less difficult to swallow given the long list of upgrades and the fact that it has long been regarded as a true driver's car. What separates the base Golf from the GTI is what you find right here under the hood. The base car comes with a 115 horse four-banger. The GTI, well, you get a choice of two engines. The first is a 1.8 litre turbocharged 4 that's good for 180 horsepower. It's good. What's better, this 2.8 litre VR6. Simply a new cylinder head bumps the horsepower from 174 to 200 even, and you've got to love that. The narrow angle V6 is a neat concept as it delivers the smoothness and power of a V6 engine, yet occupies little more space in the engine bay than a 4-cylinder motor. The other major consideration is that it delivers 85% of its 195 pounds-feet of torque anywhere between 2,000 and 6,000 RPM, putting it in the all-important everyday range. The result is a very rewarding driving experience. 100 kilometers an hour appears in a tick over 7 seconds, adding the hot to the GTI's hot hatch reputation. The 6-speed manual gearbox that comes with the VR6 has a pretty good feel to it considering VW's rather rubbery efforts in the past. It also brings well-spaced ratios, a clutch that is progressive but sadly less than perfect. As with the last few Volkswagens tested, the clutch's bite point is very late in the travel, which is both a pain and a problem. The pain is the workout your left leg gets in stop-and-go traffic. The problem is the late engagement promotes clutch slip on takeoff, which is a big no-no as it wears the clutch needlessly. Inside the GTI, well, it's a story of good things and bad. On the good side, you get tilt and telescopic steering. You also get a very well-placed dead pedal and these seats which bring massive base and backrest bolsters. Now, those things keep you planted when you play with the car. The bottom line, this is a driver's vehicle. Now the two nits to pick, first of all, everything is a very drab black. The only exception are the instruments. At night they do light up a nice blue. Beyond that, get used to black. The other thing is this monstrosity. Now believe it or not, this is supposed to be the cup holder. Now if any of the coffee in the cup liberates itself, it has a habit of dribbling into the slot for the CD player. Now what really peeves me off is the fact that you've just paid $1,500 for a sunroof and this monsoon stereo. So pouring coffee into the CD just doesn't do its magnificent sound any good whatsoever. While the GTI suspension is not exactly exotic, featuring McPherson struts up front, a simple torsion beam axle in back and anti-roll bars at both ends, its manners are remarkably poised. The grip is tenacious, body roll and understeer are benign, and the feedback through the steering wheel superb. You know, this GTI is like a terror through the pylons, and it boils down to a number of things. Obviously, you've got to have a solid chassis, good suspension and decent steering. Beyond that, the GTI brings two other important things. First up, these 225/45 R17 tyres, which provide tenacious grip and a very good electronic traction control system. Now I say the latter is very good because it doesn't jump in the instant the car begins to understeer. Rather, it gives you a little bit of latitude before any electronic intervention. As with the handling characteristics, the brakes are well above average for a car in this class. The four-wheel discs, which come with a top-notch anti-lock system and brake assist, provide tremendous fade-free stopping power. I also like the pedal feel. The initial pedal movement provides progressive braking. From then on, incremental inputs boost the braking forces exponentially. It is a great system. Elsewhere, the GTI offers a full complement of airbags. Along with dual front and side seat mounted bags, there are optional side curtains. You know, the GTI VR6 really is proof positive that very good things come in small packages. You know, in spite of the relatively tight dimensions, this thing gets 18 cubic feet of cargo space under the tonneau cover. Remove it and fold the seats down, and that more than doubles. When you add this versatility to the Golf's very sporty personality, you begin to understand why it remains so popular.
Tip of the week concerns parking your vehicle on a steep grade. Anytime you park on a steep grade, there's a procedure you want to follow. First of all, solidly apply the parking brake, let go of the brake pedal and feel that the vehicle is held by the parking brake. If it won't hold, you need to get your rear brakes serviced. Once you've set the parking brake, the next thing you want to do, if it's an automatic transmission, place the transmission into park. If it's a standard transmission and the vehicle wants to roll forward, put it in a forward gear, preferably first. If it wants to roll backwards, put it in reverse. The third thing you want to do is turn the steering wheel and point those wheels into the curb. If this vehicle wants to roll forward, obviously on this grade, I'm going to turn it to the right so that if all else fails, it's going to snub into the curb. If it was aiming backwards, I'd turn the wheels the other way so the back of the tire went into the curb. The idea being that if all else fails, if the parking brake doesn't hold and the transmission doesn't hold, the vehicle will still snub up against the curb and not get away into the traffic. Now, last week I was in Halifax and I was really impressed that when I walked from the waterfront up the Signal Hill to the Citadel, 8 out of 10 cars that I saw were correctly parked. I was very impressed, Halifax. That's your Midas tip of the week.
Well, dogs have always been an important part of the family, and probably more so today. And there's a lot of new products on the market that are available for those dogs. Our store is K9 Biscuit Company and Gear for Dogs. It's a manufacturer of very healthy dog treats, but we bring in some unique items for dogs. Well, there's a lot of luxury items on the market for dogs now. Jewelry has become a very important stylish thing for dogs. There are accessories, beautiful collars and leashes, a wide assortment of treats and foods available for dogs. A lot of people need to drive their dogs to a dog park to get the exercise, and increasingly people are concerned with protecting the seats so that if the dog's been in the water for a swim at the beach, they don't want to get the seats wet and smelly. There's a product made by puppy-proof seat covers that we carry that protects the seats from wetness and smell. They're made of Sherpa fleece, so they're entirely washable. They go on very quickly, and then just pull them off, throw them in the wash, and back onto the car. We also have Pet Step, which is a ramp that helps older dogs get into higher vehicles, even into the back seat of a car. A lot of people are having trouble with older dogs getting into the car, so you pop the ramp out and the dog can walk up into the back of the vehicle. It's now possible for people to take their dog wherever they want, and now they can rest assured that the back seat is protected and not going to be soiled by a dirty dog.
Early in the program, we met Cameron Hood and his Volvo 740 Turbo. He mentioned his success with synthetic oil, but he also told me that once he thought he had an engine oil leak, but a mechanic friend of his told him not to worry, it's only seepage. What's that? Well, let's ask our man in the Quaker State garage, Bill Gardner.
Well, Brad, I guess seepage or weepage is just a very low-level engine oil leak. Let's define an engine oil leak as one that actually reaches the ground or gets onto a part of the engine so it smokes or smolders. For example, if you've got leaking valve covers, it'll get on your manifolds and you'll actually see some smoke coming from under the hood when you stop the car. Or if you've got pools or puddles, drops of oil every time you park, these are leaks that are pretty active and you need to deal with them ASAP. However, weepage or seepage, just a low-level leak, usually kind of localized. It's not cause for alarm, and believe me, a lot of high-end cars that are relatively new have a little bit of seepage. We had a 98 Mercedes in the shop the other day with 90,000 kilometers on it, and there was nothing reaching the ground, but when I looked in particular areas of that engine, I could see a little bit of seepage here and there. It's not cause for alarm. However, when it builds up on the engine, and this pickup truck is a perfect example, it's got a fairly heavy accumulation on one of the valve covers. You want to think about getting it off there because it acts as a fur coat on the engine and it elevates your engine oil temperature. Most engines just rely on their external surfaces to dissipate the heat that's dissolved into the motor oil. The motor oil cools most of the reciprocating parts in the engine. Now, this particular vehicle has an optional engine oil cooler that's part and parcel of the radiator. It pumps engine oil from above the oil filter up to the rad here, and that's a dedicated cooler just for the engine oil. Most vehicles, though, don't have this feature. And in that case, you're just relying on external surfaces. So if you see that greasy, grimy crud on the top covers of your engine, you can get some degreaser, use it according to the instructions on the can, and you can purge that crud off of there carefully. Now, a lot of guys want to run out and buy one of those high-pressure steam cleaners and sort of take the lazy man's way out, just stand there and point and blast away. It'll get the crud off there in a hurry, but those things use a lot of pressure and in some cases hot water, which can drive moisture into critical electronic components. So sometimes they can cause more trouble than what they fix. Now remember to follow the instructions on the can to the letter. A cool engine, cover any components that you don't want the cleaner to get on or avoid them completely. Spray the cleaner on the degreaser and allow it to foam up. And allow it to soak for 10 or 15 minutes and then hose off the deposits. It'll lower your engine oil temperature, make the underhood area look cleaner, and it'll reduce some of the odors that you tend to get from an engine that's got a little bit of crud built up on it. Not a tricky thing to do. If you're not comfortable with doing it though, take your car into a garage or a car detailing shop and they can do that for you. It's not a big deal. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2003.
We're having our 2003 press event for SLP Engineering. Two different products. One is SLP Engineering, which is our new relationship with Ford, which is the Ranger-based Thunderbolt. And secondly is our automotive group, which is a spin-off from SLP Engineering, and that will be direct-to-dealer packaging of three GM vehicles, which is the Pontiac Grand Prix, the Buick Regal, and the Chevrolet Monte Carlo. What we needed was to excite the Ranger line. There's other brands out there that are building these sport trucks, sport pickups. It's all the rave right now. Pretty much it's body cladding, wheels and tires, hood scoop, and then air intake to make the engine breathe better, and catback exhaust to make it perform better. We've got 222 horsepower right now out of the 4-liter V6, and the same package can go on the 3-liter V6 also. This Buick is the GSX version. We've got a handling package, which is springs and shocks and sway bars, a wheel and tire package, and then an air intake and exhaust to give it that grunt and the power. We've also changed the front grille and the rear spoiler. And it's a sleeper. It's pretty much a car incognito, but with 270 horsepower.
Now Now, is this the typical Canadian motoring scene or what? The drive-through. Now, I'm not ragging on country style and A&W. By fast food standards, they're about as good as it gets. But I don't understand this thing you see every morning in every city, every town in this country, 15, 20, 30 cars lined up at the drive-through to get their double-double. I mean, don't we have enough traffic jams? Do we got to go and create our own? We got to volunteer to be in a traffic jam? You're sitting there behind 15 cars. They're all idling away, getting 0 miles per gallon, obviously. The pollution is filling the atmosphere. It's filling your lungs on top of everything else. I actually heard someplace that drive-thrus are one of the most environmentally insensitive aspects of all of motoring. It's craziness. Now, they're supposed to be about time saving and convenience. Are you kidding me? Sitting in traffic for 15 minutes? It's faster to park your car, shut the motor off, go inside and get your coffee. Not only that, it might be the only exercise you get all day. Besides, as Dan the cameraman pointed out, half the time you spill the change in the driveway, you got to get out of the car anyhow. So do yourself a favor, do us all a favor. Park the car, go inside. And since you're saving all this time, why don't you drink the coffee inside instead of while you're driving? I'm Jim Kenzie.
Although minivans, like the Honda Odyssey, have always been popular in Canada, that's not the case south of the border. And with the popularity of crossover sports wagons, you might wonder if the days of the minivan might be numbered. Well, maybe not. A leading pollster is predicting sales of minivans will grow by at least 150,000 by 2005. The reason? At least 11 car makers are about to redesign or add new entries, putting more pressure on Chrysler, the annual market leader who first introduced the minivan in 1983. Now you might ask, why are minivans more popular in Canada than the United States? Well, we'll leave that one for Jim Kenzie on a future program. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
The thing I can't get past, I like the design, but I can't stand this plastic body cladding. Now, I know Honda said that the reason is it's scratch-proof and you can lean your bicycle against it, because we're always leaning our bicycles against our vehicles. So, I mean, the only practical application I can think of is next time I'm in downtown Toronto and a bike courier smashes into my car, it won't leave a scratch.
TSN's Motoring 2003 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil, oils fine-tuned for different engines, and Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.